This is the page, the channel, where you can hear my more indulgent indulgences. So if you're here, that means you're probably here by accident, or maybe you have a sort of morbid attraction to that which is dead or dying. It's interesting how, as you age as a man, you get more and more aware of your essential grotesquery. You become, at first, quite shocked at how you are perceived, and then you start to realize that yes, you are truly old and grotesque, and you have to rearrange your perception of things, because prior to a certain day or week or month or year, you were not grotesque in the way that you are now. Prior to that certain day, week, month, or year when you became what's generally understood to be old. And I know that old is a relative term, but I'm talking about perception. When you get to the age where you are generally perceived to be old, then you realize you're seen much less sympathetically in certain ways. In other ways, you are deferred to more often. There is a certain privilege that comes with being old and gnarled and obtaining the grotesquery of age. And that privilege is that you are given a wider berth in certain ways. Before you're old, before you're seen as old, people don't want to excuse you for things in the same way that they are willing to do, just almost at a unconscious level, once you obtain this status of grotesquery that is conferred by age, conferred by the perception of being aged, of being old. So there are certain benefits, but what's more shocking and what's more damaging, potentially damaging to the psyche, is the awareness that you are now viewed with a certain degree of loathing. I'll just say loathing. Because you carry it around, you carry around this curse, this cursedness in your face, in your frame, in the self that the world sees. You carry around with you this cursedness that they loathe and want to shun. For as long as they possibly can, because being grotesque in this way is a kind of death. It marks the death of youth. And the death of youth, to some, is almost as much a catastrophe as the death of the body. And so, even though being grotesque, being grotesquely aged is, in a way, a status, in another way, it's alienating. Because it means that you have come to represent something that people just on a basic level just loathe in their hearts. In a way, you've become unnatural to them because they equate nature with youth. And agedness is something that should not happen to youth. It's like an assault upon youth. And this is the grotesquery of agedness. As far as the carnal goes, there's something particularly disgusting about the idea that the aged, the grotesquely aged man, would still have carnal drives, carnal desires. This is something that is held against him. Just because it is, again, on a basic level, perceived as disgusting. It's perceived as an assault upon the beauty of youth. And when I say the beauty of youth, I'm not saying everyone who is young is beautiful. I'm saying when you are young, there is a perceived beauty about you, and that perceived beauty dissipates, more than dissipates, it's violently assaulted when grotesquery sets in, when the grotesquery of age sets in, and one becomes aware of one's essential monstrousness in the perception of others. You're a monster among men. And it's held against you, even though, of course, it's not something that was chosen. There's nothing rational or reasonable to this kind of response. It is a pre-rational, pre-reasonable, pre-reason. It is meta-reasonable. It is beyond reason. This type of response. It's just simply the way that this type of grotesquery impacts upon the minds of those who perceive it. And it's an odd position to be in when even in youth, one was never aware of being desirable. But now, that lack of desirability has been compounded by the grotesquery of agedness. And now you find that as undesirable as you were before, as undesirable as you ever were, now you've attained this new echelon of undesirability for all of the reasons that I've just laid out. And a good deal of what you must do, the work you must do, is being able to be grotesque with dignity, carrying your essential grotesquery with a kind of grace. How is that done? How can what is grotesque be grace infused? It doesn't seem like it were possible. How do you go about doing so?